Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. So if you guys can see, the setup is a little bit differently. I was able to get that fourth bookshelf moved into this room, and it's already almost full. I just need to get this little section situated, and then I will most likely be getting another one. But that is neither here nor there. This is going to be my February reading wrap up. I know it is super late in the month of March, but better late than never. So I did read 7 physical books, and then I read or listened to 6 audiobooks. I do have the physical books here. I will show that to you guys in a little bit, but I want to touch on the audiobooks. I want to get those out of the way because I don't actually have physical copies of them. There's 2 of them I would like to get the physical copies of, is I really did enjoy the stories. They were sad, but really good books nonetheless. So we're gonna go ahead and kick start it off. So the first book that I read is Raising Mentally Strong Children. It was written by an MD and a PhD. This is more of a self-help, making sure I'm on the right road as far as parenting goes, because if you guys didn't know, I have a teenage daughter who is in high school, and that's kind of what that book was for. And a lot of it was really good, and a lot of it was it kind of depends on the situation, the culture, the background, that kind of thing. But I'm gonna go ahead and breeze past that one. The next audiobook that I listened to, it was The Vanishing Half. I gave that book 4 stars, and it was not what I thought it was going to be. I honestly, like I said, a lot of the times when I get books or read books or listen to audiobooks, I don't like to read too many of the synopses. I will look at some of the blurbs, but I try not to pay too much attention because I do like to go off the vibes, but I have to be careful with that because I ended up picking up 2. One was a psychological thriller written by Colleen Hoover, and that book was not what I thought it was gonna be. So I might have to kind of switch up how I do that. But anywho, this book, I thought it was about one person. It ended up being about 2 twin sisters who were born in this town, middle of nowhere, Louisiana, I think it was. I don't. Apparently, you couldn't find it on a map, and they changed the name of the town later on down the road. But essentially, it was about 2 twins who were born to light-skinned parents, or mixed race parents who could pass for white, and the girls could also pass for white. And one ended up marrying a black man, and the other ended up marrying a white man. They both had children, and they were trying to slowly find their way back into each other's lives. And then in between them trying to pass for white, or just fully embrace their blackness, life kind of got really tricky. I will say the ending was very unexpected. I definitely thought it was gonna lean more towards them being together as a family unit, and that's not exactly how that went. But if you guys haven't read The Vanishing Half, please pick it up. I know I'm super late to this train. It was a book that was talked about for 2 years at one point, and I just read it this year. The next audiobooks, these 2 go hand in hand. I think one is the prequel to the other, but I read Bookshops and Bone Dust and Legends and Lattes. I gave both of these 3.5 stars, and now that I'm thinking about it, I should have given them 3. They're fantasy. They're actually, it's sapphic fantasy as well, because the main character, who's an orc, she ends up being with females in both of the books, honestly, or female-esque characters. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you've seen the old covers before they've redone them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But essentially, the orc, she ends up banding together with this group of just misfits and vigilantes, and not vigilantes, mercenaries that got paid for whatever jobs it was that they did. And then eventually she got away from that life in the second book and opened up her own bookshop, but she was running into a whole lot of trouble trying to, not bookshop, like a coffee shop. She ran into a whole lot of trouble with the new people in the town that she settled into, and then previous members from her old mercenary group. It was not what I thought it was going to be. I will say that I was expecting more of a fanciful roam around their world, and that, I mean, you got that, but you didn't get a whole lot of that. It was pretty much built on this one person trying to change their entire world and perspective after everything that she had been through. And it was okay, it just wasn't the best. For whatever reason, I was expecting it to be more you know, they've got magic and, you know, they eat these weird foods and all these good things. Like the orc that opened the shop, like she was selling lattes and coffees and like pastries. And I'm not gonna lie, the way that it was pushed out to us in the book, I would love to go and visit, sit down, read a book, whatever. But it felt like they could have been talking about two humans if it wasn't for them explaining the characters, like details, like characteristics, features, and all that. I would have forgotten that we were talking about an orc and a succubus at one point. But in that prequel, that first book, Bone Shops and Book Dust, I'm sorry, Bookshops and Bone Dust, Jesus Christ. The little rodent character had a potty mouth, and I thought it was funny. So I think that was the reason why I really gave it like a 3.5. But I may go back and change my rating to just 3 stars. They were okay. They weren't terrible. They were just okay. And then the second to last book that I listened to as an audiobook was The Lost Apothecary. This was about several women back in the UK, and how they handled their problems with like the men in their life. And that was an interesting story too. I gave it a 3.75 because it did have a then and now kind of like timeline. So you got like the 1800s to like current time to like, you know, in the 2020s. But it was unexpected, I will say that. And I honestly feel like I could have gotten away with reading this book in the fall time, like, you know, September, October-ish, because it was given those kind of vibes, if you get what I mean. But it was not a bad read. I just wished I would have waited. It was kind of a right book, wrong time kind of thing. I just wished I would have waited. I might have to start reading the synopses or the blurbs to get a better picture of like when I should pick up my books. I do tend to mood read. A lot of the times with the audiobooks, whatever is available through Hoopla or Libby is kind of what I'll go for. But a lot of the times I'm switching between like 3 or 4 books at a time. So my reading tastes will vary depending on what I'm doing, how much free time I have, and what's available. And then the last audiobook that I read, and I'm so mad I'm so late to this train. I just knew if I would have read it at the time that it came out, it would have like wrecked me, which it still wrecked me, but I feel like I can handle it now. But I read The Hate You Give, and then I watched the movie immediately afterwards. And of course, you know, the movies never mesh up to the actual book because they take out a lot of the detail, which they did. And the movie annoyed me a lot because a lot of that crucial detail was missing, but the book was really, really good. And books like this are books that we need in our lives, especially, you know, with what's currently going on in the world today, who's sitting in the White House today, like just everything that's going on. This book is a good book. So I challenge you as a reader, male, female, however you identify, personal color, non-personal color, you need to pick up this book. You need to read it, and you need to really, really, really get into it. But I gave that 4.75 stars. And the only reason why I did that because it is geared towards a younger audience. The main female character is in high school. And it did bring up a lot for me, just because of like my background and where I'm from and where I'm currently at now. But it is the message in the book, the like just everything about it is super important, super relevant to even today. I know this book came out years ago, but I'm just now getting around to it, and I'm happy I read it. It was a really good book. But that was it for all of my audiobooks. We're gonna go ahead and get into my physical book stack. These are all of the physical books that I read in February, and I'm gonna go ahead and just start with the one that's on the top because I want to say 1, 2, 3 of these were on my list. 4 actually, 4 of these were on my list. One of them I did have the audio, actually 2 of them, 3 of them, I'm lying, all of them I did immersive reading with. But the first one I'm going to start with is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I forgot how Abby Jimenez writes her stories. The last book that I read by her was I don't even know where the hell it's at. What was the last book I read by her, and why can't I find it? I know I have it. Just for the Summer. Oh my God, that cover was so goddamn deceiving. That book had me going through all the emotions. And so did this one. This one started off like super cutesy, super fun, like flirty. I think I gave this book I gave it 4 stars, and I'm looking at my phone. I have everything right here, and I'll even post that on the screen. I gave this book 4 stars. The way this ended, y'all, damn. I was like, what? I had to rewind the audiobook and then go back and look at the pages, and now I have to finish this series. I know it's an interconnected standalone. I do have the other 2 books. I do plan on reading those. It is the Happily Ever After playlist and then Life's Too Short, those books up there. Those should be read with this book. And yeah, this has some very difficult like tropes in there. This talks about a woman who suffers from, I forgot what I think it's like cystic fibrosis, or like she has these things on her uterus that makes it like super difficult for her to conceive, and her periods are super painful. Like she'll be bleeding for 3 weeks out of the month. And then the other guy, I forgot, I think his name is Josh. Let me just double check. Josh, his name is Josh. He used to be in the Marines. He's a firefighter, and his best friend is getting married to her best friend, and he is the best man and she is the maid of honor. And they have an attraction to each other, but they're fighting the attraction. And they have to like plan their friend's wedding. But the ending of this book was not what I expected. And if you have not read this, that ending is going to do some things to you. Okay, the next book that I read, and I want to just make sure, because this is a Reese's book club pick. It was How to End a Love Story. I don't know if this was a right book, wrong time kind of thing, but I picked it up and read it in February because one, it was a prompt, and actually it wasn't a prompt in the TBR jar. This was actually the audiobook that I had picked for my February reading TBR, and this was, I mean, the vibes, it was given like February vibes, or you know, the month of love vibes. This is written by an Asian author, and we love diverse reads. I just couldn't get into this. The female main character and the male main character, like the hate was there immediately because the female main character's sister was going through some things and she was trying to unalive herself, and the male main character ended up like unknowingly helping her like complete, you know, her like get her wish for being able to unalive herself. And starting off with that, I was like, what the hell did I just pick up? But the female main character, male main character end up like end up being together, or they've realized they have a lot in common, and there was an attraction there that they were both trying to stop. Y'all, it was a lot. It was a lot. And they ended up having to work together on a book that the female main character wrote that was being turned into a movie or a series. I forgot. But it was a weird turn of events in this book. And a lot of the times I missed some things, but I wasn't even interested in going back and like listening to what was said. I just kind of like pushed through because I wanted it to be over. I gave it, like I said, a 3.75. It wasn't bad. I just think I picked it up at the wrong time. And I usually love Reese's book club picks. This one just didn't hit all the marks for me, but it was not a terrible read. The next book, and I'm super excited about this because that means I get to finish the last book, and I should be just in time for when they really start kicking off like everything with the adaptation to a movie for this book, and that is Children of Virtue and Vengeance. I cannot wait to see what they do with the first book, because it's, like I said, it's been turned into a movie, and the character lineup or the cast lineup, I'm super excited. But of course, I gave this 5 stars because the last book left us off on a huge cliffhanger. This one also left us off on a huge cliffhanger. And I'm kind of pissed because I need to know what happened, but I'm trying to like slow it down on like finishing up the series because she only has 3 books in this series, and I desperately am going to need a 4th book once I finish the 3rd book. But this book left me on the edge of my seat, and I need to know what's going on, because the way these things happen in this book, y'all, I'm not gonna give any spoilers. I'm not gonna say what this is about, because if you haven't read it, shame on you. You need to pick it up. You need to read it now. This is the second book in a 3-book series. I really hope she does more or does something with the other characters in the book, because I love every single person, every single character, every single storyline, the way everything's intertwined. Amazing, 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 amazing. 5 stars for this entire series, and I haven't even read the third book yet. And that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it at that. Next book. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and hold up both of these. I think I gave the first book in this series, I gave 4.75, and then the second book I gave a 5-star. And y'all, these are my first Kennedy Ryan reads, and homegirl did not disappoint. We'll start with the first book in the series. This is Skyland series. I know she has a third book coming out in May. If I'm wrong, I'll put the correct date on the screen. The first book is about Yasmin and Josiah. They got divorced after she had a very traumatic miscarriage of their third child. And y'all, they are literally like the epitome of like rags to riches. Like, they started literally from the bottom and made it to the top, and they are doing a damn thing with their kids, themselves, their business, whatever. They are apart, you know, during their divorce, and then they realize they still very much love one another and want to give their relationship another try. I've never read a story like this with that kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily know if you would call it like a divorce trope, because they did end up getting remarried, but this whole story hit a lot of things for me, because I have unfortunately experienced a miscarriage, and I am divorced, but there is no love lost as far as that divorce goes. But this book was written beautifully, and now I understand. I am on the Kennedy Ryan like train. I'm there for it. The next book I have, the audiobook, is Real, and I really want to pick up the physical book, because I did do immersive reading with this book as well as this book. And let me tell you something, the main female character in this book was going through it, baby. Soledad was going through it, and her husband, dickhead. But I'm so happy she finally found what it was she was looking for. She ended up becoming like an influencer, because she's really good at like doing home cooked meals, the way she cleans up, her organizational tips, all of that. It just kind of took her from here to here. And I love the ending that Soledad ended up getting in this book. And my camera battery is about to die. Hold on, guys. Okay, I'm so sorry, the angle is a little bit differently. My camera battery died, but we were talking about the second book in the Skyland series by Kennedy Ryan, and I was saying how much I love Soledad and how she got what she deserved. I'll say deserved. She got what she deserved in this book, and I'm so happy about that, because her character, again, Kennedy Ryan wrote her beautifully. The conflict, the storyline, just everything in this book was amazing. And I did like this one more than I liked the first book. I think the first book was just a bit too emotional, because it hit on 2 things that I really like experienced in real life. And this one was like the main female character actually like getting out of a shitty situation and then getting, you know, something better in return. And I love that. I cannot wait for the third book, because that one is about Hendrix. She is a third friend of Yasmin and Soledad, and honestly, Hendrix is giving the vibes I wish. She's giving rich auntie, I can afford it, I'm gonna be here for you, like great friend vibes. And I love that. I cannot wait to see what her book is gonna be like. But that series right there, absolutely chef's kiss #1. Love it. And like I said, I'm gonna pick up Real, which is another Kennedy Ryan book. And I know she has a backlist of like a crap ton of books, but I get the hype. I understand it now. I'm here for it. The next book that I read, and I gave it 4 stars. I have to make sure and check my ratings, because I never know. This is Daydream. This is the third book in the Maple Hills series. I have Icebreaker and Wildfire. I am not in the same park as everybody else. I did like Icebreaker. I didn't like the female main character's best friend. He was an asshole, and I'm so glad she like figured that out in the book. Wildfire was a good book, and Daydream I think ended up being my favorite, because the male main character and the female main character exhibit some traits that I personally exhibit in real life. But I love how they were able to come together. I do hate that Hallie was going through a lot, but as she met Henry, like things were like crazy. They were on a roller coaster the entire time, but it ended up evening out for them. And I love how they tied the characters from the first two books together in this story. And I am glad that Henry did get a book, but I do love Hallie, and I love that both their names start with an H, because there's a scene or a section in this book where he draws on her, because Henry's an artist and he signs it with an H, but her name starts with an H as well. So I just thought that was super, super cute. But I'm so happy they both got like their happily ever after, and things worked out, because you do in Wildfire especially, you get a what is it called, you get a jump into the future, and these two characters are mentioned in there, and I love that. That means everything worked out for Hallie, and I'm here for it, because she's a book girly, book lover through and through, and she ends up writing a book, and I just think that is so damn cute. But this one, I also had the audiobook for it too. Really, really good, really cute read. And I'm so happy I finished that series. I'm trying to wrap up a lot of the series that I have going on, because y'all, I'm in the middle, unintentionally ended up being in the middle of a lot of series, and that might be another video that I can do for you guys if you are interested in seeing that, like series, continuing books in the middle of series that I'm in. I want to see exactly how many series I'm in. The last book that I read, and I also listened to the audiobook to it too, because it ended up being better than the first one, which thank God, and that is going to be Apprentice to the Villain. I love Evie and Tristan. Tristan is the villain, and Little Frog Kingsley with his signs, the way that he's described, adorable. Hate how this book ended. Hate but love how this book ended. And I know the third one will be coming out this year, I think in August, and I need that book. That one is going to be Accomplice to the Villain, and it should have sprayed edges. It's also going to be blue cover with green sprayed edges, I think. But I read Assistant to the Villain. I rated Assistant to the Villain a lot lower than Apprentice to the Villain. This book I gave 4 stars. Assistant to the Villain I didn't give a high rating, because the audiobook, the person who read that, like, she was adding words that weren't there. She skipped over words that were there, and it wasn't meshing. Like, I was like, what page is she on? Where is that word? It was hard. This one, however, they did a much better job. I think it was the same person. I think she just realized, you know, what she was doing. But this, I'm so happy I read this. I was actually supposed to finish this in October, but I'm kind of glad I'm finishing it in 2025 instead of 2024, because that gives me enough time to kind of keep these characters, the storyline in my mind until that next book comes out. But I am excited. If you guys don't know what this is about, this is fantasy. I wouldn't necessarily say it's YA, because they are a lot older in these books. But Evie, I love her, the character energy that she's giving, and you can see her developing and becoming the person that she was supposed to become after meeting the villain. I do hate how things went down with her and her parents. But if you guys haven't read the first book or the second book, I'm not going to spoil it too much. That's the only bad thing about reviewing or doing these wrap-ups when it comes to like series, because if people haven't read it or they're not, you know, on the same book as you, it's always kind of hard. I don't want to give away too much, but it does get a shit ton more interesting, and it does leave off on a huge cliffhanger. Like, I thought as I was getting to the end of it, I was like, yeah, I got about like 3 or 4 more chapters. No, that was it. I was on the last chapter, and I was like, what the hell just happened? But read this book through all the way to the epilogue. But the third book is coming out. I don't know how many books she's gonna have in this series. I don't know if that third book is gonna be the last one. I am enjoying this, but I don't see this going beyond 3 books. You know what I'm saying? But I love the vibes. The vibes of this is like, it's cutesy. It's a good palate cleanser. Like, there are parts in here that actually made me laugh out loud because of some of the things that they were saying. But yeah, if you guys get a chance, please pick this up. This is a good fall read. But I feel like because of everything that's going on in the books, you can read this whenever. It's just the vibes of the cover and the sprayed edges that it's given. But that is my February TBR or reading wrap up. Those are all the books, and I think it was 13 books in total that I read for this month. I guess I'm on a 13 book streak because I read 13 books in January, and I'm well on track to finish and read 13 books in March as well. But you guys stick around, watch some of the other videos if you haven't seen any, and I will have my March TBR up. I know it is super late because it is currently March 12th when I am filming this video, so I will try to get my March TBR video up as soon as possible. Let me know what you guys read in February, if you read any of the books that I read, what your ratings were, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.